Well, there's a lot going on in the world right now, as you guys all know. And I'm not going to beat to death everything that's happening because you guys have probably heard every single angle. Some people defending Trump, some people going against Trump. We're here to talk about the United States chemical weapons program that is still being phased out 33 years later. Now, if you think about the implications of this, outside of the fact that the destruction of all these chemical weapons that I'm going to talk to you about tonight basically have to go somewhere. Many of them to the bottom of the ocean. We wonder why, the oceans are dying. We're going to read about this. I was shocked to find what I did. I'm going to read this article. I was shocked to see that this is even public knowledge. This is the United States Chemical Weapons Program. And as you can see, they began destroying them in 1985. That was 33 years ago. And here we are bombing a person that we suspect has chemical weapons. Now, they admit in some of these news headlines that the sarin gas is no longer there and that these are just chlorine gas facilities, which is completely illegal. Because if the sarin gas was there, when they got hit with a bomb, that would have killed additional people because the sarin gas would have been released. This is typical, the pot calling the kettle black is what we're dealing with here. Now, here's the history. We're going to go over a little bit of the history of the use of chemical weapons by the United States. And the one takeaway that you're going to get from this is that the United States has a diverse selection of chemical weapons, more diverse than Syria itself. The hypocrisy is just astounding. And they actually have been used by the United States. We're calling this man evil without even any proof that he did this. And on top of it, even if all things were equal and he did do it, which we pretty much know he didn't, then we are calling the kettle black, being the pot. The United States Chemical Weapons Program began in 1917 during World War I with the creation of the U.S. Army's Gas Service Section. Ended 73 years later in 1990. Now, what you're going to notice here is that the actual end date of the chemical weapons program goes past the date that they started destroying some of the chemical weapons. Now, this was recent history, you guys. This was the Gulf War right in here. So we were basically accusing Saddam Hussein of having weapons of mass destruction while our chemical program was still ongoing. I mean, is anybody awake? I mean, this is the kind of stuff that just drives me nuts. Now, I put the link to this in the description because there is a movement afoot to discredit everything that is talked about in Wikipedia articles. And all this is footnoted. So if you have questions or you doubt the information in the Wikipedia article, simply click on the footnotes. So I put a link in the description. Make sure we're still connected up here so that you guys could see what's going on. All right, let's take a look at this chemical weapons program. Destruction of stockpiled chemical weapons began in 1985 and is still ongoing. U.S. Army Medical Research Institute of Chemical Defense at Aberdeen Proving Ground continues to operate. So this is ongoing. So here's some of the history. The U.S. has participated in the formulations of the Hague Conventions, which banned chemical warfare, among other things. But the U.S. never joined the article which prohibited chemical weapons. Because if they had, they wouldn't be able to have chemical weapons. Now, many people will say, oh, this is a deterrent. The bottom line is if you're calling someone evil, and we've heard this many times from many presidents, heard it from Obama, heard it from Bush, heard it from now Trump, calling these people very evil for gassing and bombing their own people. You can't say that when you got them yourself. In World War One, the U.S. established its own chemical weapons research facility and produced its own chemical munitions. Produced 5,770 metric tons of these weapons, including 1,400 metric tons of phosgene, 175 metric tons of mustard gas. So we got phosgene, we got mustard gas. Let's do a count here of how many different types of chemical weapons the United States has in its possession or had at one time. This is about 4% of the total chemical weapons produced for that war, and only just 1% of the era's most effective weapon, mustard gas. U.S. troops suffered less than 6% of gas casualties. U.S. also established the first gas regiment. So this is history going way back to World War One. During its time in France, the first gas regiment used phosgene in a number of attacks. U.S. began large-scale production of an improved vesicant gas known as lewisite for use in an offensive planned for early 1919. Lewisite was a major American contribution to the chemical weapon arsenal of World War One. So in World War One alone, the United States produced 3 different chemical weapons. Okay, one of them was used. Now, by the time of the armistice on November 11th, a plant near Willoughby, Ohio, was producing 10 tons per day of the substance, for a total of 150 tons. It is uncertain what effect this new chemical agent would have had on the battlefield, however, as it degrades it in moist conditions. After the war, the U.S. was party to the Washington Arms. So that was World War I. 3 different chemicals. Oh, but it gets better. World War II, we did not use chemical weapons. However, quantities of such weapons were deployed to Europe for use in case Germany initiated chemical warfare. At least one accident occurred. On the night of December 2nd, German Junkers Ju-88 bombers attacked the port of Bari in southern Italy, sinking several American ships, among them John Harvey, which was carrying mustard gas. Talk about an environmental disaster. The presence of the gas was highly classified, and authorities ashore had no knowledge of it, which increased the number of fatalities, since physicians who had no idea what they were dealing with the effects of mustard gas prescribed treatment not consistent with those suffering from exposure and immersion. 69 deaths, most of them American merchant seamen. Out of 628 mustard gas military casualties, civilian casualties were not recorded. Then we enter the Cold War. So you're seeing the U.S. has a history of chemical weapons. Every single war. After the war, the Allies recovered German artillery shells containing 3 new nerve agents developed by the Germans, prompting further research into nerve agents by all the former Allies. Thousands of American soldiers were exposed to the chemical warfare agents during Cold War testing programs, as well as in accidents. In one accident, it killed 6,400 sheep when an agent drifted out of a Dugway proving ground during a test. U.S. also investigated a wide range of possible non-lethal psychobehavioral chemical incapacitating agents, including psychedelic indoles such as lysergic acid, diethylamide, also experimented to see if it could be used for effective mind control. So this is the MK Ultra program. Then, all of a sudden, magically in 1969, President Nixon decides to renounce the first use of chemical weapons and renounced all methods of biological warfare. He issued a unilateral decree halting production and transport of chemical weapons, which remains in effect. From 67 to 70 in Operation Chase, the U.S. disposed of chemical weapons by sinking ships laden with the weapons in the deep Atlantic. So we've got chemical weapons at the bottom of the Atlantic. The U.S. began to research safer disposal methods for chemical weapons in the 1970s. You know, they claim to be shooting all this stuff off into space. They claim to have the ability to launch things out into space. Why not launch the chemical weapons out into deep space if there's a way to get out there? instead of spending all this money sending astronauts up to a space station. Destroying several thousand tons of mustard gas by incineration at Rocky Mountain Arsenal. Okay, so at least they tried not to poison the ocean. So they incinerated this, which seems like that would be the best way to do it. But you're seeing how much tonnage of nerve agents and chemical weapons we are in possession of, while calling the rest of the world and anyone who we think has them or uses them, oh, it's grave danger. We have to destroy these plants right away. What if they came back and started bombing our chemical facilities? U.S. entered the Geneva Protocol in 75 at the time it ratified the Biological Weapons Convention. This was the first operative international treaty on chemical weapons that the United States was party to. So they began stockpile reductions in the 80s, removing outdated munitions, destroying its entire stock of BZ beginning in 1988. Why has it taken 33 years to destroy all these weapons? They're saying because they have to find a good way to do it. My question is, why create something you can't get rid of that takes you 33 years to get rid of? And are you really taking 33 years to get rid of it? It's like you tell your kids to go, brush their teeth and wash their hands. If they don't want to do it, they'll sit and lollygag. We call it lollygagging when the kids are growing up. And basically, these kids will just lollygag around. Well, that's what the US seems to be doing because they don't really want to get rid of them, is what I'm thinking here. I mean, anyone with half a brain can see what's going on here. So here we go again. 86, President Reagan made an agreement with Chancellor so-and-so to remove the U.S. stockpile of chemical weapons from Germany. Apparently, there were chemical weapons in Germany. As part of Operation Steelbox, 2 ships were loaded with 100,000 shells containing GB and VX. I don't even know what these are. Taken from U.S. Army weapons storage depots and transported Germany to Johnson Atoll in the Pacific, a 46-day nonstop journey. May 91, so Bush was involved in this, committed the United States to destroy all chemical weapon retaliation. Oh yeah, of course, because then they couldn't call Saddam Hussein a very evil man, right? Can't call him an evil man. Unbelievable. 93, signed the Chemical Weapons Convention, which required the destruction of all chemical agents by 2012. That didn't happen. They were only able to destroy 89% of the original stockpile. Complete destruction is not expected till, you guessed it, 2023, 322 backwards. And they even admit here a policy of calculated ambiguity warns of an overwhelming and devastating response in the event of CBW, chemical or biological weapons, being used against the United States or its allies. So they'll never say that they've gotten rid of them all because they need to have the threat to retaliate, right? When we're the biggest producers in the world, it seems to be, or well, that statement might not be true, but if you look at the menu here of different kinds of biological weapons, you can see that we have a varied selection. So here we are. The United States was party to some of the earliest modern chemical weapons ban treaties. Okay, you always have to show the opposite of what you're doing. Although this treaty was unsuccessful. Treaty about chemical weapons disposal. According to U.S. Army Chemical Materials Agency, by 2012, they destroyed about 90% of the original stockpile of 31,000 metric tons. That's a lot of nerve and mustard gas agents declared in 1997. This is just what they're admitting to. 31,000 metric tons. That's enough to probably fill a couple container ships. U.S. disposed of the more dangerous modern chemical weapons before starting the destruction of the older mustard gas stockpile, which presented additional difficulties due to the poor condition of some of the shells. I wouldn't be shocked if they were selling some of this stuff to other nations. You don't invest millions of dollars in this stuff and just dump it in the bottom of the ocean. My guess is we're in one giant howdy doody show, and they're we're all fighting for nothing. This stuff is being sold to other countries that are then used on people, blamed on somebody else, and then we go and bomb people. At the end of the day, the people who suffer are not Assad, it's not Bush, it's not Trump, it's you and I, and the soldiers that go to war, and the people that they kill, who they have to then live with that for the rest of their life. Of the weapons destroyed up to 2006, 500 tons were mustard gas, and the majority were other agents such as VX and sarin. I mean, I was shocked when I was reading this. People don't know this. 14,000 metric tons of prohibited weapons have been destroyed by June to meet the Phase 3 quota and deadline. So they're setting all this deadline. This is like a drawn out court case. Anticipating the failure to meet this deadline, the Bush administration in September 2003 requested a new deadline. So, man, the primary remaining chemical weapons storage facility in the U.S. are Pueblo Chemical Depot in Colorado and Bluegrass Army Depot in Kentucky. These two facilities hold 10% of the U.S. 1997 declared stockpile, and destruction operations are under the Program Executive Office, Assembled Chemical Weapons Alternatives. Other non-stockpile agents or old buried munitions are occasionally found and are sometimes destroyed in place. Disposal of chemical munitions has concluded at 7 of the U.S.'s 9 chemical depots. So these depots are spread out all over the United States, these chemical depots. They've gotten rid of 7 of the 9. Pueblo and Bluegrass are constructing pilot plans to test novel methods of disposal. U.S. also uses mobile treatment systems to treat chemical test samples in individual shells without requiring transport from the artillery ranges and abandoned munitions depots where they are occasionally found. Can you imagine if you're a U.S. soldier and you're like, hey, what's in that bunker over there? Oh, that's where all of our mustard gas is. Get ready to get on the ship. You're going to Syria to bomb their mustard gas facilities. I mean, are you serious? Bluegrass is, so they're saying by 2023, all this is supposed to be gone. I hope I'm around by 2023 because I will be talking about this chemical weapons program in the United States. Destruction of munitions containing BZ, a non-lethal hallucinating agent, occurred at Pine Bluff Chemical Activity in Arkansas. Hawthorne Army Depot, Nevada, destroyed all M686 chemical artillery shells and 458 metric tons of binary. Like, what are they doing with all this stuff? Are they really getting rid of it? Where is it going? That's my question. Now, I don't know the answer to that, but if we're funding terrorists in Syria to help overthrow the regime, you can imagine where some of this stuff might be going. So that's the story on the U.S. chemical weapons program. I just wanted to inform you guys because oftentimes we make decisions based out of emotion. And what we really need to do is take a look at some of the facts. And we had a very extensive chemical weapons program based on what I just read in the United States. I wonder if Britain has a chemical weapons program or France has a chemical weapons program. We'll have to look at that next. Anyway, I want to give some shout outs to all you guys in here. Appreciate you guys coming to the show tonight. See all of you guys in here. There's a lot of good live shows. I do recommend that when Blackstone Intelligence, they'll probably upload a video on the recent strike, how that all went down, maybe even the response of Putin. Something tells me they're all in on it. This is the divide and conquer, us against them. And I'd be curious to see what he comes up with because he's got his finger on the pulse. Also, Underground World News last night, they were covering this or were listening to it live, asking some very tough questions about what is going on. And I just encourage you guys to stay on this, um, watch some of the shows, listen to all points of view, and from there, we'll just have to sit tight. I mean, this is crazy. Who knows what's going to happen next? I was kind of shocked that there was no response from Russia. On the other hand, there are reports coming out of Syria that they shot down a bunch of stuff. Now, that might be fake news. I don't know. A lot of this is posturing. So the US isn't telling the whole story. They're just not going to. They're not going to show losses and things in bad light. And I'm sure that the other side may be doing the same thing. But at the end of the day, Syria is reporting that they shot down a bunch of missiles that came down, and the only ones that did get through were the ones that didn't matter. So, what is that all about? So, all right, so I'm in the chat here. Yeah, the Bible says Damascus will be in ruins, and apparently that is the case. Now, I don't know if it's been destroyed before or if this is the first time, but it's definitely fulfilling Bible prophecies right now. Chemical weapons we destroyed included rockets, landmines, rounds for big boat guns, says Renaissance. Yeah, Blackstone's great. Roy Potter, I think I'm subscribed to him too. Yes, Soul Rescue. Damascus will become a ruinous heap. The sad part is the people that are suffering. Now, I was shocked. I looked into like Syrian law. This is what no channels are talking about. So if you made it to the show this morning, abortion is illegal in Syria. I believe unless it is harming the mother. You got to ask yourself, who is really fighting for the children? Also, Syria got clear warning. Here, let me look up this law real quick. I don't want to get this wrong. Syria. Now, this doesn't constitute a judgment call. Some people will say, oh, it's because they don't have women's rights. It's all about your perspective, right? Where's the rights of the child? Induced abortion is generally illegal in the Syrian Arab Republic. Under the Penal Code 22 June 1949, a person who performs on a woman with her consent is subject to 3 years imprisonment. And even the woman is subject to fines or imprisonment. When I think about 1973 Roe v. Wade, and a certain number comes to mind, 58 million, it makes me sick to my stomach. Also, if Assad knew that this was going to happen, if he was such the evil man that he was, wouldn't he like put civilians in these places where the US he knew would bomb? I mean, think about all this. If you were an evil person, wouldn't you do that? Oh, Assad's not doing it. The rebels are doing it to fight the Syrian army. So that's what's going on. And I just can't even believe it sometimes what's going on in this world. I was shocked to hear France was involved, the UK, of course, they're allies of the US, but how easily these countries get on board. But there's all this stuff going on behind the scenes. You got all this political stuff. You've got people doing each other favors. It's all about money. People are bought, sold, okay? Controlled. Nations are controlled. They get obligated to get involved in this stuff. It's not about doing the right thing. It's about trying to basically control other nations. So that's what's going on with this. Yeah, shout outs to everybody in the chat. Ex-Con, there's Rebecca, I see Allie, Deb, Aaron, Wake Up, Sean. Yeah, I popped into Underground World News at the very end in the chat, but I didn't get to get on the show. I just woken up, and I look on my feed, and there's like almost 3,000 people watching Underground World News. I'm like, what the heck happened? Something happened. Then I just popped in and listened, and yeah, it was going down. I was like, this is nuts. Apparently, there's a lot of apparently France makes a lot of jets, fighter jets. But it's weird, like the fighter jets that France makes, they sell to countries that are against the United States. It's unbelievable. Let's look this up real quick. We're just in one big puppet show. France fighter jets. I was researching this. They sell like, actually, I think they sell French Air Force. I know they sell to Saudi Arabia. I think one was China. Military aircraft of France. And apparently they make really good military aircraft in France. I'll have to do a separate video on that. But that's what's going on with France. They make fighter jets, fighter aircraft. Let's see here. And it's just, it's crazy. It's like, when they talk about arms deals and weapons manufacturing and selling these weapons, this is big business, you guys. Big business. Talking billions of dollars. And let's do this. Oh, I think this is it. Delta Wing. Dassault Rafale. Okay, this is the French gust of wind. It means burst of fire. Dassault Rafale. Twin engine canard. That means duck. I know that because I was eating it and Mark told me it's not a clean meat. Delta Wing, a multi-role fighter aircraft designed and built by Dassault Aviation. Look at the article on this. Now, some of these are pretty outdated, but what happens is they get outdated, they sell them. So it says here, in order to reduce development costs and boost prospective sales, France entered into an arrangement with UK, Germany, Italy, and Spain to produce an agile, multi-purpose fighter, the Eurofighter Typhoon. Okay. Let's read down in here. Okay. India. Rafale has been marketed for export to several countries and was selected for purchase by the Indian Air Force, the Egyptian Air Force, and Qatar. Rafale has been used in combat over Afghanistan, Libya, Mali, Iraq, and Syria. Okay. So this is a snapshot into the fighter jets of France, who they sell them to, and all of that. Potential operators: Belgium, Canada, Finland, Malaysia, United Arab Emirates. Failed bids. Oh, look, they were going to sell them to Libya. Huh. But that was a failed bid. French newspaper reported that Libya sought 13 to 18 Rafales in a deal worth as much as $3.24 billion. So this was in 2007. So Obama was not in office yet. And who was president at that time? Bush. And then like 3 or 4 years later, we went into Libya. So it says here in 2007, Saif al-Islam Gaddafi declared Libya's interest in the Rafale, but no order was placed. French Rafales later attacked targets in Libya as part of the international military intervention during the 2011 Libyan Civil War. Unbelievable. So there's what's going on with that. All right, guys, pull up this chat again. Glad everybody came out. I just wanted to get on here real quick and show that to you guys, tell you what's going on, just get more information on everything. And so I'll probably just let you guys go at this point. Glad you guys were able to pop on the show. We'll go live again soon with some topics. I got a couple movies in the wings. This is the site I go to look at movies. So we'll check that out. I did try to watch Maze Runner, but it was so lame. I just stopped watching it. The sequels are never as good, right? Looks like a thriller called 10 by 10. Might have to check that out too. All right, guys, much love. Take care and be safe.